Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bearded Mystic podcast, and I'm your host, Rahul N Singh. Thank you for taking out the time today to either watch or listen to this podcast episode. Today, it's an important episode because I talked about it the other day, and we talked about how we would look at some of the pitfalls in Bhakti and how we can get to Nirgun Bhakti. The whole point of Bhakti is not to stay stuck on the form, but to get us to transcend the form. And that form can be anything that we find a close affinity to, where we find divinity just emanates so easily from that form. And that can be your guru, that can be your Ishtevta, that can be your Kuldevta, that can be any of the Devis and Devtas. It can even be the elements, like Surya Devta and so on. So we can have that. We can have Ishvara, we can have Saguna Brahman. That's all good, and we will look into each things where people can get stuck, and we'll look at how Advaita Vedanta deals with it. So we will start. The first point is persistent duality. Now, we have this constant feeling of, well, I'm the devotee, you are God, or you are my Ishtevta, you are the form that I worship. And what happens is that then becomes an ego thing of one gets identified as, oh, I'm the devotee and that's God. Only God can do it, I can't do it. And that is obviously, if you look at Advaita Vedanta, that's a big no-no. In the beginning, one can entertain this because, one's building up confidence in spirituality, so it's needed. But the ego should not be surviving here. So what happens is we then become, the worshipper has a new, like a renewed ego, where it's like, oh, well, I'm the devotee, only, I've got to seek blessings, and I've got to seek forgiveness, that, not that that's bad, but it's certainly not advantageous eventually, because are we going to keep being in the victim mode in Bhakti, or are we actually going to go into full-on worship where there's oneness in that worship? So with Advaita, we would ask the question, well, who is the I that is devoted? When someone says, I am the devotee, who's the I am here? And we would explore that, and we'll find out what is actually devoted. And then we'll see that both the devotee, the idea of the devotee, the concept of the devotee, and God will arise in awareness. And we'll realize that actually, there is no difference between me and God. It's oneness. We're not separate. It's not two here. And this devotion actually kind of transcends duality and transcends mere identity when we understand our true nature. So Bhakti can get us to do that. So instead of persisting with this duality and being consistent with this duality of I'm the devotee and you are God, we got to merge the two together, and that will bring oneness, and that is non-duality, and that's Para Bhakti, the highest Bhakti. Now, as I mentioned, when we say that I'm the devotee and you are God, we can get stuck in the names, the forms, the rituals, and the emotional highs. And definitely, if you've ever been part of an arti, whenever you've been part of a jagran where they do a jagrata for the whole night, there's a whole night of like Mahashivratri, there's a whole intense energy that's accumulated in that moment. You go to a Sufi Sangeet or anything where there is praises of the divine, that can get you emotionally high. And that is an amazing feeling. It's beautiful. But should that get us stuck? Should that make us feel, should we keep chasing those emotional highs? Or should we be trying to find this emotional high in our life? Now, it's an inner state. This bliss that we achieve when we, or feel when we are meditating on the divine, contemplating on the divine, worshipping the divine, it does bring an immense energy to it. But at the same time, are we just chasing the energy, or are we merging with the energy? That's one thing we have to see. So here, if we're constantly just thinking, this is the image that I worship, and my image is better than that, or the name and form that I worship as a guru, that's better than yours, that then becomes a problem. Because we have to understand that any image, any name, any ritual, any emotional high, these are all mental states or physical states, and therefore it's ultimately just Maya, a projection of Maya. But these, what we could say, higher states of Maya, are there to kind of get us into the mode of devotion. They're not meant to be the full highest form of devotion. This is meant to be a stepping stone into the nirgun, into the formless. So we have to turn our attention to that formless substratum, the underlying substance that's there, that's formless, and that's the witness of all names and forms. So what happens is you're worshipping, but you're being aware of the worshipper and the worshipped. Yeah, and that's what you capture. So that's where bhakti matures, when you're just from the loving the form to actually the formless. And when there's the formless, think, can there be any boundary to your devotion? Can there be any boundary to your love? Can there be any condition to your love? No. It grows and grows and grows. And sometimes we get so stuck on the forms, we forget what they're representing, which is the formless. Yeah, and that's very important. Then, bhakti can also, strangely enough, create a fear of ego death. Now, we may have this resistance to just not existing. Imagine if I don't exist, and how can I worship God? And if I disappear, then my worship to God disappears. And we, cling to that personal God because we want to protect this I-ness that we have, this ahamkara that we have. The ahamkara cannot have devotion. Yeah, that can never have devotion. The ahamkara would make that devotion into a game, in order for it to survive. But bhakti, true bhakti, is about getting rid of the ahamkara, getting rid of the ego. So what would happen here is that we will say, look, ego death is not the end. It's your freedom. Don't be scared to lose yourself in devotion. It's okay. Remove your existence. Then what will remain? Only God will remain. And that's the highest form of devotion. So what happens here, and the funny thing is, it's not that you disappear or you dissolve away. No, the I dissolves away, the false I, the false self, and only Satchitananda alone remains. Because that's our true nature, that's the true nature of Brahman, that's who we are. And so we should never shy away from that. So what happens here is that if you feel in that moment of bhakti that if I go any further, it's going to remove my whole existence and I may die, just remember that you will remain after this. You will not physically die. You'll not even have a full-on ego death, because ego still has a function. But what will happen is you will no longer identify with the ego. The Jeev identifies with Satchitananda. And that's the true essence of bhakti. I've alluded to this before, but let's go a bit deeper into this one, is when we identify as a bhakta, as a devotee. We cling to this self-image that, I'm a das of this Prabhu. I'm a das of this Bhagwan. And what happens there is the subtle ego. But, I'm the das. And that das can become an ego. That das can become an issue, where we just say the words, but we don't actually feel that we are. So imagine, if you say that you are a das, then are you a das just for a particular clan, community, people? Or are you a das for everyone in existence? See, you can't be a das for one person, you have to be a das for all. Then there's no high and low. But if you are a servant of this Prabhu, this Nirakar, this Shiva, whatever you worship, Narayan, then you have to see everyone as that form. So even being a das is very difficult. But it should not become an ego, and we get stuck in the, well, I'm a servant of the Lord, and a guru comes to you and says, you are the Lord, and you say, no, I'm the servant of the Lord. The guru's pointing you to the highest, and we're saying, no, I'm the das, I'm the das. What's happened? Identity. So even the identity, the idea that I'm a bhakta is a thought. So we have to drop all these roles. And we have to investigate, well, what is saying that I am a das? Who is the das here? And yes, if you are truly the divine, you will worship all, because all is the divine. There is nothing but the divine. It's the omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. It's the only one here. But for that, we have to dissolve every self-image that we have, even the one that I am a devotee. I am the servant of the Lord, even that. And what should remain for us is just this pure, formless consciousness. And from there we do bhakti. My guru often says, and it's a very important line. She says that bhakti begins once you know what God is. Once you attain God, godliness, then then bhakti begins. And this is very deep. Because can we do bhakti in ignorance? No, if there's like a deal going on, then it's not bhakti. Bhakti is not a deal with the divine. Bhakti is beyond that. Bhakti is where the divine only is. Where we get so lost in this fervor of devotion that we lose ourselves and we never return. The ego I'm talking about, the amkara I'm talking about. That is devotion. This other one that, I often hear people say this, and they may claim to be Gyanis and all this, and frankly the Brahma Kumaris say this a lot. They say everything is a drama, a leela, a play, and therefore they don't want to deal with the actual problem of duality, which is the real problem, but they rather deal with the whole not dealing with it properly without going beyond, well, what is behind this play? What is behind this drama? They just keep saying everything is a drama. Is it really? Somebody in abject poverty, you say that their poverty is a drama that the Lord has put onto them. What? How is that even justifiable? Or instead of actually people dealing with their problems, you say everything is drama, it's a leela. It's the Lord's leela, it's the Lord's drama. But does that really work? Does it actually help us transcend our emotions, our body and mind identification? Does it help us to rest in formless awareness? No. Because there's still something. But actually we're double layering it. First we're saying there's a God that's separate to me. Then there's a play that God has written that is separate to me. So the question is, do we even have free will in this matter? So then can you have free will to even do bhakti? Is it your choice to do bhakti? So yes, you can honor that somewhat the world looks like a stage. Yeah, you can honor that. You can definitely say, some part of it is a leela, but go deeper. What's the reality behind all this play? Is this play even happening? It's like a beautiful example that Advaita uses, that when the wave realizes it's the water, leela continues. What happens? The wave no longer fears dissolution. It knows that it's going to keep appearing as a wave, and that's fine. But its substance is the same. It's water. So therefore, we're that same one reality, and this drama of the world is just a wave in the whole Leela. It's a wave in the reality. That's all the Leela is, and that's the way to see it. And then another point, and this is the last point, one of the last points we're going to be making, is actually there's a few more points. One is when we surrender, we think we've done it. That's it. It's the end. We're finished. We're done. I've surrendered to the Almighty. How many people I've heard say to me, "Oh, I've surrendered to the divine." No, they haven't. If you surrendered to the divine, you would actually go with the flow of life. And I'm telling you, none of them go with the flow of the divine. They have one little desire. They're impulsive and they chase that desire. But they say they're surrendered. They know nothing of surrender. And when you say emotionally that you surrender, oh, I've given up on life, does that mean you've surrendered to the actual divine? No. Or you say, God, I'm so upset, I surrender everything to you. But when you get happy, what happened to your God in your surrender? And this happens. So, true surrender is not, oh, I give myself to God. It's true surrender is the dissolution, the disappearance, the annihilation of the I-ness, of the I-making, the ahamkara. Because that is what surrenders. When you surrender the true I, when you say, I have no identity that is of a name and form or body and mind, I am this pure consciousness, I surrender to this. I surrender to Aham Brahmasmi. That's the true meaning of I am Brahman. When you surrender all identity and only Aham Brahmasmi remains, not as a statement to be made, but the continuous, you could say, experience to be lived, because that's the only experience we actually are living. That's the only reality you're living in, is Aham Brahmasmi. We just create layers instead of being Aham Brahmasmi or Tattvamasi or whatever Mahavakya or Shivoham. So it's only when that surrender becomes total, when we totally surrender our body and mind and our identity, only then is that surrender. Because only Brahman should remain, only this Nirakar, this Shiva should remain, nothing else. That is true surrender. Not an emotional one, oh, I give myself to God. I give myself to God, but I will harm the humanity as much as I can. I keep hold of my power. Imagine there's a priest who runs the church or runs the temple, and he says, oh, I've given myself to God. I've given myself to Dharma. And they do such acts which make you think, how are they giving themselves to God? They're the most corrupt people on the planet. But people will say that I'm being devoted. That's what they would call. So that these little things we have to be very alert of. And then there's devotional distraction, and this is a big one, actually. We constantly would go to satsang, to kirtan, to do seva, to do rituals, just to keep our mind engaged outwardly. But are we doing any work internally? That's the question. And sometimes that's not happening. We are not going for that. We are just doing the actions week in, week out, and we're not thinking, who is the one behind all these actions? Who is the one that's the witness of all these actions? In which awareness is this occurring in? Where is this Brahman? How is this Brahman? Am I this Brahman? That inquiry is not begun, but we keep doing the run of the mill. Yeah, I keep going to satsang, I keep doing seva, I keep doing the rituals, I keep going to kirtan, I keep going to the temple. But is anything happening? Are we learning anything? Are we progressing? Are we moving forward? See, you can't call this bhakti. Bhakti is a true is when you are fully into this. It's not based on external circumstances, it's on the internal circumstance. How much of the mind are you analyzing and checking? These little things, and this is for the beginner of the path. I'm not talking about people on who've reached the end of the path. This is for the beginner. This episode is for the beginner. I've been there. All the things that I mentioned today, I've been there and I've had to deal with it. So it's not like, and I know it can be done. It can be done, and it will be done. So that's one thing, devotion leads you, and this is a really, really important point. It leads you to an immense silence, where when there's oneness with Brahman, when you understand there is nothing but formless awareness, and you feel that ananda, you feel that bliss, you're in that continuous, constant flow of bliss, shall I say. Silence is there. Neither do you need to confirm anything, neither do you need to deny anything, neither do you need to attain anything, neither do you need to surrender anything. There's just this equipoise, centeredness that you have that is experienced in true devotion. True devotion is a dissolution of all pairs of opposites. That's true devotion. So, if you want to do the highest seva, the highest satsang, the highest kirtan, then abide as Brahman, abide as formless awareness. That is the most sacred one. You want to listen to the best kirtan? Then listen to the inner sound of silence. Listen to the Om that is there in the background all the time. Wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning, 4 a.m. and you'll hear it. When you hear that, no worldly music can come close. No lyrics can come close. It can be experienced. And these are just good signs to say keep on going in this bhakti. Keep dissolving yourself. Remove yourself as much as possible. And the conclusion of this is, and the massive point of why there is this blindness that can come with bhakti, is that there's an absence of gyan. Gyan and bhakti are two wings of the same bird. You get rid of one, it can't fly. That's what I've learned in my devotional and jnani practice, is that one has to have both. And karma is the bird that is flying, the in-between. Because your actions must reflect your bhakti and your gyan, your knowledge. So, devotion without that inner self-inquiry into what am I? What is this awareness? What is Brahman? It only leads to stagnation. You'll be doing the same thing again and again. You'll do good karma, for sure. You'll probably get a nice favorable birth in the future, but it won't lead you to Jivan Mukti, which is a point of bhakti and gyan, both. Jivan Mukti is the solution, is the end goal. That is the point of bhakti. That is the point. So combine bhakti with your gyan. Do not let go of either of them. And, let that devotion, that emotional ride that bhakti brings, put that into the inquiry into what is real, what is here, what is now, what is this awareness, what is this witness, what's this sakshi. Get absorbed in this. Seek that union where there is no way you can unmerge. You combine completely, like sugar into water, salt into water, where the salt cannot be seen anymore, the sugar granules cannot be seen anymore. Don't be like oil and water. That is not devotion. So that union disappears. That two-ness that remains. Only oneness remains, and that's true bhakti. That's true jnana. So what you could say is, in the beginning, bhakti begins with, oh, I love God. I love my guru. I love my Ishtevta. Beautiful. Amazing. Good. Then it matures into, what am I? This formless, this nirakara, this God is amazing. Only this remains. And then it ends with, I am this formless awareness. I am Brahman. I am God. But not as an ego, remember. It's the most humbling experience, moment in your spiritual journey. And it's that humility that remains afterwards. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's not so much of the pitfalls of bhakti, it's about how to utilize bhakti effectively. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know your thoughts. Do ask questions. If you have something that you disagree with or want to explore more, write a comment, write me an email, get in contact with me. The whole point is to continue the discussion. Okay? Do like this video, comment, subscribe, join me on Discord, you know all the rest. Anyway, take care, have a good weekend, take care, namaste, bye.